What would you do if you were suddenly told how the world around you was going to end? You would be told how it was going to happen. You're going to be told why it was going to happen. And you could see this going on around you. You could see that the world's kind of going sour. I think it's a good way to put it. And you were told this very clearly. And you're told how you're going to be able to survive the coming catastrophe. So what would you do? Develop a plan, maybe get the materials together, learn how to do the tasks that you might have to do, whatever this plan is you've come up with, and then you got to do it. Now, this all takes time, and we all have some normal tendencies. I know I do. I probably would kind of wait. I'll get around to it. I'm going to go out and buy my food storage or whatever you're going to buy or whatever. I'm going to start working on this or buy some property in Eastern Washington or something. But I'm going to wait. I'm going to get around to it eventually. Maybe I'll have some initial enthusiasm. I'm going to jump out to it right away, and it's going to kind of get tired eventually and kind of fade out like it from the speaker. And kind of lay it a scene, right? Let's go to Luke 17 and verse 22. And then he said to the disciples, so this is Jesus. I'm not going to go into this big section because this is a fantastic section of Scripture. But let's go to verse 22. And then Jesus said to the disciples, the days will come when you will desire to see one of the days of the Son of Man, and you will not see it. And they will say to you, look here, look there, and do not go after them or follow them. For as the lightning flashes out of one part of under the heaven and shines to the other part of the heaven, so the Son of Man will be in his day. But first he must suffer many things and be rejected by this generation. And as it was in the days of Noah, so that it will be in the days of the Son of Man. And they ate and they drank and they married wives and they were given in marriage and until the day that Noah entered the ark and the flood came and destroyed them all. What are the days of Noah? And you probably know the answer because you've heard this before, you've read this. So is this just a condemnation of the world that's around there? What do we know about the time period of Noah? Let's go back and think about it just a little bit more. Society back then was pretty corrupt. It had gotten to a point where it kind of left a bad taste in God's mouth, right? Genesis 6 and verse 4, and 4 through 7, but let's go to verse 5 actually. And the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord was sorry that he had made man on earth and was grieved to his heart. I mean, that's pretty intense when your own children, you're kind of grieved that they even exist, right? God's repenting for having made man. The world is fulfilled with violence. But he identifies somebody in that time period, right? Genesis 6 and verse 8, he talks about Noah was living righteously to the best of his ability. He was standing out. What do we know about Noah? Noah had to build an ark. He was given instructions. He was told what to do with it, what to put on it. He was told what was going to happen. God didn't necessarily tell him how to build the ark, though, did he? Now, I don't know. Maybe Noah was a carpenter. Maybe he wasn't. He lived in the middle of what we call Iraq today, as best we estimate, right? Not too many oceans around there or big bodies of water. He probably never built a boat in his life. What did Noah do? I mean, who was this guy? He was 500 years old. He was probably pretty set in his ways that he'd been doing. They were good ways because God liked him, right? But he wasn't a teenager. This wasn't Daniel, who at 17 years of age or 20 years of age had impressed God that much. It'd take Noah 500 years. As best we can pull out of this one. And God told Noah divinely what was going to happen. And he told Noah, he didn't tell everybody else, right? And he let Noah start working. And he worked. And he worked. He probably learned a few lessons along the way, I think. I mean, we know it took him a period of time, right? His sons were born when he was 500 as well, so that's as best we can time point when God told Noah this. And when the flood came, he was 600 years old. So that's 100 years. Sometimes we have to trust God to work at his pace, or to work things out at his time. And there's probably a lot of faith that Noah had to build during that period of time. Did God wait for 100 years? Or did Noah, what was the deal? Why 100 years? I mean, God said this is going to happen. The world's pretty bad. We got a 100-year time period there. 1 Peter 3 and verse 20. Verse 20, who were formerly disobedient when once the divine long-suffering waited in the days of Noah, when the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is 8 souls, 8, were saved through the water. So the divine long-suffering, the Revised Standard puts it as God's patience waited. Now we may think, oh, God was patiently waiting on this world, kind of tolerating what was going on around there. But maybe that's not all that was going on. Was God waiting on Noah? I mean, Noah was a man of faith. We know that. It talks about it in Hebrews 11, right? He's somebody we got to identify with. But that's 100 years that he was working. God was waiting for 100 years. God could have made it happen like that. It didn't happen that quickly. It's 100 years. Now, let's fast forward a little bit. We know the times we live in, and what are you working on right now? What challenge has God put before you? What project are you working on? Do you have a blueprint that you've been given? We probably all have our own personal blueprints, I bet. What is your ark? What is God building in your life today? Are you facing a task that you don't know how to face? Like, I'm supposed to be doing something. Is it a new job? Maybe it's a relationship you're working on or that you're in and you're trying to perfect. Are you building a deeper understanding of God's words? That's a big arc in myself, I think. Are you building a deeper spiritual life? Building a new home? What is it for you? Are you building a life based upon this world? Are your efforts and all going to physically put your treasures in this world, so to speak, not in heaven? How are you responding? Are you counting the costs of what that project is? Now, I don't know what that project is for you. I maybe not know what it is for myself, but I've maybe asked myself this once or twice. But how are we counting those costs? How are we trying to see what God is doing in our lives and trying really to be introspective and trying to figure that out? How are we financing it? How are we getting that ball rolling? What is that problem that we're trying to tackle? How are we approaching it? Are those based on some fundamental principles? What is that? Does God have to wait on you? Is God giving you challenges that you can't handle? Well, we know that's not the case, right? It says that in the book. He expects you to overcome them. He expects you to build an ark. Are you going to take 100 years to get it done? Noah did all that was, Genesis 6 and verse 22. Thus Noah did, according to all that the God had commanded him. So he did. He did, and it talks to him, you go through that, he did it. Worked three times, this action's noted. He's working for 3 times. You go to Hebrews 11, like we were talking about, and read just Hebrews 11 and verse 7, and talk about the faith of Noah and how he goes through that process, and how's your faith being built as you're building your ark. Go through and break down that verse. It's worth looking at. And then what happened after that? Genesis 7 and verse 10 and 11. And it came to pass after 7 days that the water of the flood were on the earth, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, and all the day that the fountains of the deep were broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. God didn't tell Noah how long he had, right? He got 100 years, and at some point, God, you got 7 days. So he's had 100 years, 520 weeks, 36,500 days, essentially, and you get 7 days. So in 2/10,000ths of the time that you've had, God makes it happen. And that day it happened. Noah had to run inside, get his family in there, right? God slammed the door behind him. In the end, God was there to provide, to get it done in that last, not even a blink of an eye, if you're thinking about how fast is 2/10,000ths of a second, right? Your eye doesn't even blink that quick. The world's similar today. What is our view of the end time? Oh, we're going to see this coming. We got 5 years left. We got 10 years left. We got 15 years left. Maybe we only got 120 years on this world. Hopefully we all got 120 years on this world. but maybe our time's up and we got 7 days. We've read Revelation. We know how this is going to end. No man knows the exact hour it's going to happen. But what were the days of Noah? It's ushering in a fantastic future. And so it was in the days of Noah, so it will be also in the days of man. Should we be interpreting this verse to look at the world around us and kind of see what's going on around us? Absolutely. We should be looking at the world and understanding what's going on and being aware and cognizant of all the stuff that's happening and all the leadership issues our nation is facing. We should interpret this verse also to tell us we should be ready. We should be preparing, building our faith. We got to be building our ark. We got to be facing those trials, those difficulties, those things we really don't know what we want to, or we don't know we're doing those problems. And all these trials, these difficulties, these things that we're fighting, in the end, we got to build our ark. And you got 7 days.